want to call to order the February 5th, 2015 meeting of the Ascension Parish Council. Now I'd like everybody to please stand for the invocation being given by Councilman Chris Lohr. Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear Lord, as we gather here tonight during this winter season, we know many of us are suffering with illnesses, and ask that you bring your healing grace down on those who are suffering, and also especially those who are dealing with long-term or critical illnesses. We ask you to provide some measure of comfort. We also, Lord, as we meet in Donaldsonville tonight, ask that you provide some comfort and peace to this community as they struggle with the recent violent incidents in the last couple of weeks. And we ask that through your grace and your power, you can help heal this community and move forward. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chris. Madam Secretary, please note that all present except Councilman Benny Johnson, who's at work. We have no chairs additions. I just want to let everybody know that if anybody wishes to speak on an agenda item, please sign in with the Secretary and you'll be given time when that item comes up. We'll move right into the Parish President's report. Mr. Martinez.
Just have a couple of things. First of all, I'd like to congratulate Cinnamon. She's been named Vice President of OPAO, which is a prestigious organization in the Police Jury Association, and next year she'll be the president. So I think she'll be the first president from Ascension. Is that correct, Cinnamon? And the other thing, I want to announce that there'll be a musical tribute to the troops on March 13th. It's a great show. If you hadn't gone, and it starts at 6 o'clock. It's at the Gonzales Civic Center. There's tables available. I think Mr. Scheck's his brother's in charge of it, but it's something that they do every year now. It started last year, and I'd like all of you to think about buying a table or buying a ticket to it. $30 or $300. I bought a table, so if any of you can't afford it, I got some room at my table for you to come. I think it would be nice to come and at least pay tribute to our veterans. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, we'll move along to agenda item number 6, change order number 2, Donaldsonville DPW building project for an additional $2,202.56. Ms. Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. We're here tonight on this change order number 2 for the Donaldsonville DPW building. It's completed. This was an item that did not get on the final invoice for us, so we're having to come back and do a change order. It's been approved, the grant will pay for it, and we've been through legal as far as aspects of what this
So
is.
moved.
Second. We have a motion by Mr. Joseph, second by
Yes, sir.
Ms. Cazzo.
I just wanted to make sure that President Martin has that. It's for the city of Donaldsonville's DPW building,
Okay.
not the parishes.
All right. It doesn't say city on there.
But the name of the project is Donaldsonville DPW building, and I read it that way, and I think the last time I came, President Martinez told me also it's for the city of Donaldsonville.
Well,
So
we're
I
quite all right with that, I
apologize.
believe.
It
That's
should be
right.
open. The mayor got the keys this week, so they'll be moving in, and we'll be having some type of ribbon cutting fairly soon.
Well, that's great.
So
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any opposition? Motion passed.
thank you.
We'll move on to agenda item number 7, substantial completion, DPW building roof repair, expert maintenance. Mr. Mike Enlow. And this is the DPW building on Church Point.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
We are substantially complete, and that's what's here before you. We have everything coated, the leaks are stopped, Hydro Stop was the manufacturer, and everything looks pretty good.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion by Mr. Joseph, second by Mr. Todd Lambert. Any discussion? Any opposition? Motion passes. We'll move on to agenda item number 8, and what the chair would be asking, brought this to the agenda, asking that we send a letter of opposition, a resolution from this council to our federal representatives, our state representatives, in opposition of the new EPA National Ambient Air Quality Standards for ozone. And the reason why I wanted to bring this came out of one of our state conventions, and it's been kind of hung around us for about 20 years or so easy, and the standards keep going more stringent and more stringent, and I just don't believe, I believe they're doing a blanket. They're not giving equal opportunity to check the areas, and basically we enjoy a very good economy based on our industry, and we would like to see a better look at it. I would like to ask the parish president, you've been in this for a while. I know y'all had to fight with the first one.
It started years and years ago. It's a 5-parish area that's been in non-attainment for quite a long time. It's Ascension, Iberville, East Baton Rouge, Livingston, and West Baton Rouge. And we've been in non-attainment since I can remember, when I was elected the last time. But what happens is, they started, I'm going to give you an example, it started probably at 90 parts per billion. Okay, when we met that, they dropped the standard that made it more stringent to 80 parts per billion. And, you know, we worked years on that, we met that thing. Then they went to 75 parts per billion, and now they're proposing either 65 or 70. And I think when that happens, basically they're going to capture a lot of the parishes in Louisiana, a lot of the counties in the United States, and basically there's going to be an uprising. And you know, if they go that low, there's no way that we're going to ever be able to meet attainment. And what does that mean to us? That means that you won't be able to get any more federal money to actually have capacity projects, to add new capacity to roads. Means that they can actually set times if that when you can barbecue or cut your grass, those type things. Dry cleaners are one of the biggest pollutants of that in the ozone, so I'm sure there'll be some restrictions there. And most of all, the plants are just going to make it very, very hard for any new industry to expand. As we're seeing this boom now, it would certainly shut it down. So it's very, very important that we all stand up, basically like the flood insurance, and that's going to come back up in 2 years, so you guys are going to have to continue that fight. But on this fight, I think that it's important that everybody takes part in this. I am going to Washington on the 20th, I think it is, and I'm going to be meeting with the entire delegation. I'll be happy to bring this resolution and hand deliver it to them when I'm there. So if you want to do this, it's certainly something I think that's in order. I think it would certainly benefit Ascension Parish to oppose this.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Good motion by Mr. Todd Lambert, second by Mr. Chris Lord. Any discussion? I just want to let everybody know I gave a little handout based on what we brought back, and it's basically a summary. And I agree with the parish president that some of the things that we see come out of Washington, D.C. Comes out unscathed without the effects being known. The biggest water act that you had referred to on the National Flood Insurance Program is a perfect example. And you are right. We want to fight there, and we'll fight again in probably not start fighting that this year to go fight that. Thanks, sir. Mr. Lord.
I just want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, for bringing this to the council so we can do this resolution. I mean, I completely agree. It's something that would be absolutely devastating to Ascension Parish in particular. I was at a Baton Rouge Chamber meeting and with the LED recently. They were talking about what this would mean in terms of all the announced economic development projects, have been talked about for years shutting down, and it just would be total devastation. So I appreciate the opportunity to vote on this resolution and push this forward.
Thank you, sir. Any other discussion? Yes, Mr. Shakespeare.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this is one of the things I've often been asked about, when we go to these conventions and meetings and state meetings and things of that sort. These are the type of things that come out of that is consensus, local issues that get resolutions drawn up or requests made to national groups. And this will be forwarded to local government legislative conference in Washington, D.C., where these type of things will be forwarded. And then when your congressman sees this and it's signed off on by all of the local, elected people, it gives them a chance to realize that this is a grassroots thing, and they get behind it and support it. Again, much like Parish President said, the flood insurance thing. So this is, Randy, thank you for getting involved in this and putting it forward. We met things. Certainly we don't want to be unsafe on things, and this is one of the things where we feel like now we've reached a point where our air quality with our industry right now is good and safe for the people that are here, and we can continue to move forward. So we appreciate all you guys' work.
Thank you, sir. Any other further discussion? Any opposition? Resolution passes. We'll move on to agenda item number 9, introduction of ordinances. Introduction of ordinance amending the Ascension Parish Code of Ordinances, Chapter 13, Occupational Licenses, Taxes, and Regulations, Article 1, in general, Section 13-7, Filming, Recording Permit.
Motion to introduce, Mr. Chairman.
A motion by Mr. Todd Lambert to introduce, second by Ms. Cazzo. Any opposition? Motion is introduced. Item number 10, introduction of ordinance to create an advisory committee designated as the Ascension Parish Film Commission, names its members and designating functions. A motion by Mr. Quincy Lambert.
Second.
Second by Mr. Todd Lambert. Any opposition? Motion passes. Motion is introduced. We'll move on to public hearing ordinances. Agenda item number 11, reading of ordinance SR 1412, revisions of the subdivision regulations in the Unified Land Development Code pertaining to appeal procedure.
Open public comment. Oh, we get the radio.
Gotta read
I'm
it.
sorry, O'Neill. Apologize.
The purpose of this ordinance is to revise the language of section 174092 and Appendix 4 of the subdivision regulations of the Unified Land Development Code. Whereas Ascension Parish local government subdivision is defined by Article 6, Section 44, Louisiana Constitution 1974. Whereas Parish of Ascension is the governing responsible body within the jurisdiction. Whereas Article 6 of the Home Rule Charter of Ascension Parish, adopted May 4th, 1993, identifies the process and manner in which to adopt ordinances regulating the lands of the parish. Whereas the code was incorporated in Appendix 4 subdivision regulations of Parish Unified Land Development Code dated December 17, 2009. And be it ordained by the Ascension Parish Governing Authority that Section 17-4092 in Appendix 4 of the Unified Land Development Code is amended herein as follows. These changes are adopted. See Attachment Exhibit 1. In the event any portion of the ordinance is ever held invalid or unconstitutional for any reason by the Court of Competent Jurisdiction, such portion shall be deemed separate, distinct, and independent, and shall not affect the validity of the remaining portions of the ordinance. This ordinance shall be in effect as fully permitted as law. The exhibits or the appendix, Section 174092. The ordinance have been submitted to a vote. The vote thereon was as follows.
Time to open the public comment period.
Motion to open public comment period by Mr. Sadley.
Second.
Second by Mr. Turner.
Motion to close.
Motion to close public comment by Mr. Sadley.
Second.
Second by Mr. Turner. Ready to move the ordinance?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion to move the ordinance by Mr. Todd Lambert. Do we have a second?
Yes.
Second by Ms. Cazzo. Any discussion? Mr. Lord.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I handed out a handout to each of you proposing a couple amendments. Before I get into those, and specifically, I just wanted to say, I think to many of us, this appeals board existence was a bit of a surprise. And so I appreciate Ricky Compton, our planning director, working with the planning commission to offer some potential revisions here that we're looking at and a little bit more structure. And it's to that effect that I'm offering the amendments. The first, I'll start with actually the addition, item H, which is basically saying it says all planning commission appeals board members shall undergo the same training required of planning commission members. Now, I just think that's kind of a no-brainer. If they're going to be reviewing the planning commission's decisions, I think they should kind of have that same background and understanding that the planning commission does. E, I proposed replacing E with, and basically here what I'm trying to do is have the appeals board members actually have terms. Right now, I think it's never specified. So the same people that were on it 15 years ago, whatever it was originally created, were on there. And I think that's unfair to them, frankly. I think they were surprised to come basically back from the brink and or whatever and come sit and get engaged and go through this process again. So I think that's a little unfair. So basically what I say there is, the Planning Commission Appeals Board shall consist of 3 members nominated by the parish president and confirmed by the parish council, and have their existing appeals board members' terms end at the end of this year. New members will be, again, same process, nominated by the parish president, confirmed by the parish council, and serve a 4-year term to expire at the end of 2019. And if for some reason an appeals board member is removed or resigns, the replacement should fill the remainder of that 4-year term. So again, just trying to offer a little bit more structure, and appreciate y'all's consideration of the amendments. Thanks.
Yes, sir, Mr. Sadler.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Chris. I took a look at both of these from the handout you put out, and I support both of them, actually, and I do have a couple of others myself. I apologize, Mr. Chairman, for not writing them out like Chris did. That obviously would have been a better approach, but I'll speak to them and see if there's any support among this council. On E, in addition to what Chris said, it seems to me that the appointment should be, and I think I've said this before on other issues, that the parish council should be the person making, or the body in this case, making the appointments. And we could do this easily via our personnel committee like we do for so many other boards and commissions that we appoint. I like that strategy. Nothing again against the president making such an appointment, and obviously it's not against our sitting president because he won't even be here when all this comes to vogue. My understanding is we've only had one appeal, the one that's ongoing right now, and since that board was even established, and that's many, many, many years ago. But I think it would increase if we went through the personnel committee, a standing committee of this council, governmental transparency, by virtue of having the public at those interviews of those individuals. In addition to that, having them at the interviews, the resumes and so forth would all be part of the packet by the time we see it. Now, I realize there's a sentence in there that says we still have to confirm or deny whether the president want to do this or our personnel committee, any recommendations coming up to us. So I'm in favor of keeping that type of language in there. Part G, where it says a determination of the Planning Commission Appeals Board shall be final. I have a little problem with the word final. It seems to me at the stage in which you get to a point to where someone has gone all the way through this process, having been in front of our Planning Commission multiple times and been denied to the point of going to an appeal, emotions and all are pretty high. And we've all been inundated with emails from the individuals that are asking about the process. Is it fair? Legal counsel has responded on, I think, gingerly to all the different requests, and and we've been as transparent as we can. But it was clear to me in doing that maybe the process could be better defined. And so I like this overall thing we're doing here tonight. But getting back to the point of being final, because of all that emotion and everything, and because I think the buck should stop with elected officials as much as possible. And I realize we have some other instances in this parish where we appoint a board or a commission, and their decision on a particular item is final. But for the most part, it's not. Most of the time, these boards are recommending to us, and I'd much rather see it come up to us so that at that point in time, we can then review all the findings of all the various individuals that have acted all the way up to that point and make a decision. So reviewing again, I'd like to see our personnel committee actually be making recommendations up to the council, increasing the transparency and having the public involved in that process at the interviews and having the resumes and so forth, as opposed to having appointees made by the parish president under E, and then under G, instead of it being final, I would like the parish council to have the final say as the elected officials as opposed to our appointed body, the appeals board. And I thank everyone for listening.
Thank you. Parish President, you've been in this, and I just want a quick word. I did thank all three of the members of that board for their work, because they had a big decision in front of them.
It's seldom used. I agree with the training, that's not a problem, and I agree with the terms. I think if you're gonna do the terms, though, for this first time you do that, I think it should be not 12/31, because I'll still be in office, and then I'll be out of office when it comes. So what should happen is, you know, if you're gonna keep it the way it is, I think that the next parish president should be the one to make the appointments, because I'm gonna be doing this, and then all of a sudden somebody's gonna say, well, you know, they fixed this. He put those guys in there before he got out of office. So, you know, that's generally the rhetoric that you hear. So I'd like to see that that changed for the first 4-year term, not to be 4 years, but to be commencing on the term of the next parish president. So with that in mind, that would be something I'd like to see change. On the other, I don't know why you would want to take it to the, I can understand why not having to go before the planning commission twice. I think that's kind of redundant. But I think these people, by the time they get through this entire process, okay, that this appeals board is a good thing, because you don't have to make that decision, okay? At that point, they still have a right, but it's due process of law. And they still have the right to sue or not sue or do whatever they want to do. But why would you put you got 2 boards that you're going to be going through, and then you're going to come up and say, hey, we're going to make this decision. So you really don't need the other 2 boards if you want to look at it that way. I think you're just adding a layer to it. I think you're putting yourself in a political position that you don't have to be. Hopefully these boards are not political, and that they can make a decision based on the facts, not on emotions. So anyway, that's just the way I feel about that, Doc. No disrespect in what you're saying. So that being said, and again, as far as the appointment goes, it's not a big thing to me about who appoints these people, as long as we get some qualified people to it. But again, it does create a due process where the council was appointing the planning commission, the president would appoint the board, but you still had the right to come in and approve it. So that's just my comments. So do what you need to do with it.
Thank you, sir.
Chairman, let me chime in on the idea of making yourselves the final board. On these, planning is an administrative function. There's a state statute that calls it legislative, but if you go to the Middle District, Ascension Parish wound up in federal court once before on this issue, and the judge said, you can call it whatever you want to call it. It's an administrative function. What that does, it reduces your immunity in your actions. You may be held personally responsible in some of these actions if you act arbitrary and capricious in your decisions, where you've given them due process of law with the appeal board, and then they've got a court to go to. But you're stepping across the line from being a legislator to now being involved in everyday administrative actions. And you can do that, but I'm just going to advise you that if you do, you may also make yourself personally responsible if any judgments rendered against you that the parish is not going to be responsible for. You will. So that's why you need to consider that.
Thank you, Mr. Carrington. Mr. Lohr.
I appreciate the parish president's comments about the dates, and it was my intention to have it be the new parish president, does those appointments. So, if I'll amend my motion to say, it's 1/1/2016 and 1/1/2020. Sorry, we'll say commencing with the new parish president's term or something, inauguration. But to Councilman Sadley's comments, I actually was going down that exact path myself, about having just why not have the personnel committee do it, make the appointments and everything else. But in talking with Cinnamon, actually, and thinking back on years being on personnel committee, we have such a hard time getting people to apply for boards as it is, and we constantly have openings we're struggling to fill. Being able to interview somebody and saying, this board may or may not meet, over the course of the next 4 years, maybe, I think that would be quite a challenge to get people to commit to that. So that's why I have it written here as, the parish president basically makes the nominations. It still comes to the council. The council still has to agree with those appointments and make that decision. So that, just if that helps as far as my line of thinking.
Thank you, sir. Yes, Mr. Sadler.
Yes, thank you. And I have appreciation for both, well, actually all three, the president's and legal counsel and Chris, your rebuttal comments. And I'm not overly wedded to the change I've recommended on G as far as it being fought on. I was only offering that, when legal talks about, well, we open ourselves up to possibilities of us making a decision versus not. It seems to me if you're going to be sued, you're going to be named anyway because you appointed these guys that made the decision that the person's upset with. But I do see a level in there, O'Neill. Yeah, there's one more level in between us, so I have appreciation for that. But back to I feel a lot stronger about the change I recommended on E. I'm glad, Chris, you were going down that path at least, and Cinnamon will fuss at you for changing his mind, because I really believe that in the transparency argument that I offer, and the public being involved in that. Now, I know it's hard sometimes to sit people in these boards, and they don't want to volunteer and so forth. But one thing we could do, we need to gain trust, I always preach about this, of the public, is never allow them to point a finger at this council, okay, that, we put a law in place that allows for any type of cronyism of an individual just picking. I want you out there in the audience, and I want you out there in the audience, and you out over there in the audience to be on this board. And so I still support, I'll drop off my comments on G about final. That's, like I said, I'm not wedded so much to that. But on E, I really believe that's why we have a personnel committee. And we have the public there, and they make those recommendations to us, and at that point in time, and that's far before we had any lawsuits. We're just appointing these people. So I don't think it's a big deal. It does increase transparency, allows the public back in, lets them come. And quite frankly, as we know, oftentimes, probably more oftentimes than not, the public doesn't even come to these meetings. But it allows them the opportunity to do so, and therefore not wag the finger that, hey, you took us out of the process. You just want to control, you just want to regulate. And so I'll stop there. I don't know, Mr. Chairman, if it could be a friendly, well, there's no such thing as a friendly amendment. Yeah, if you really look at Robert's rules, but I can make an amendment to Chris's motion. I don't know if it'd be seconded. We can vote on that and vote on Chris's amended motion, or have you.
Well, we don't have a true amended motion on the
I think he
floor
kind of
right
amended.
now.
Didn't he amend your motion a minute ago, Chris? Or
I would, yes, he will. I'd just like to summarize that, based on the discussion right here, that I think that the date that they take, that they come in is basically just an academic thing, writing. Right now, they're appointed by the parish president. With them appointed by the parish president and appointees coming forward to the council for approval, that would come in front of you. That would be a step in the right direction. And I think that's what you're looking for. You're looking for transparency. So that's where we're at right now. Ms. Cazzo.
I agree with you, Randy, that the approval of the council, I think, gets us out of that conundrum that might exist, that you pointed out, and that I don't disagree with you on, about transparency. But I would like to hear how if we did not approve one, if the council, I won't say we, if the council did not approve one of those appointees, what would the process then be? The parish president would make another?
He would go look for another one.
Okay. So I think that I tend to agree with Chris that this is, that would give us ample oversight without having it. So I sit on the personnel committee too. It is very difficult. Sometimes we go without appointees because people just don't apply. Yep. Some people are much more willing to serve at the request of the parish president than they are to come volunteer to serve on a board or commission. So that's just my thought.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Mr. Sadler.
I'm not quite sure, Terry, I agree with the part about ample because of the fact that, once again, when any individual, regardless who that person is, parish president, a member of the council, whatever, makes an appointment, want to be sure this point is understood. It excludes the public. It's just an appointment. Whereas when we have the personnel committee advertising, people come in applying for that position or multiple ones, they've got their resumes. I know I went through this as a planning and zoning commissioner, and then they're interviewed by the personnel committee. The public can be there. That's the level of transparency that I think is missing with an individual appointing someone as opposed to a board being there, which could potentially be influenced if the public shows up and says, well, you know what, I don't think this person is appropriate for the appeals board for this reason, or even, you know, they are and there's no problem. I'd always like to include as much as possible without bogging the process down, the public in it. That's all I'm trying to do. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, Mr. Brian Malonson.
Yeah, is there a way we could come kind of into the middle of that where you eliminate both issues? So as part of the approval process, if that candidate is appointed by the parish president, can we put in here that the approval has to be done at a public hearing of the council, and then actually put whether it has to be a majority or 2/3? That way we have those regulations in there, and then you do have that openness. We have the transparency. They're still going to be questioned in public. They have a chance for a public hearing, and we also lay out what it takes for us to approve it or disapprove it. And that way you've got it in there, but also don't have to worry about whether you can get the people to apply for it or those things.
Yes, sir. Good point.
Is that doable, O'Neill? Is it, I mean, can you do that as a public hearing?
It's all doable, and we, I think you're moving in the right direction, Brian, and yes, Mr. President.
I don't see a problem with asking for 2/3 of the council, because I already appoint people. I appoint the CAO, I appoint the public
Right.
works. All these people have to be, it's the same process that I still have to come to you. I can appoint them, but you have to confirm them.
Right.
You got to do it by by simple
Does that work for you,
majority.
Brian?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that kind of solves
you, sir.
what everybody's looking to do.
Yes, Ms.Kezzo.
I like that too, just to throw my
All
two
right.
cents in.
Does that work for you, Mr. Shakespeare?
Yes.
You got the floor, sir.
I agree with Mr. Satterley that we need to have transparency, and I think what we end up doing is that by doing what we've talked about, I'm very satisfied that the transparency issue is satisfied. This body passes ordinances that become parish law that the people of this parish live by. That's our job. We all go out and advertise, and we select all the planning and zoning commission members that go out and make a ruling and get all the information. Then the parish president comes up and selects, and in this case now, I think we all agree, nominates proposal to nominate the appeal board, just like he says he nominates others. This gives a little bit of a separation of branches of government, and I'm okay with that. And it comes to us for approval. At that point, it's at a public meeting. Anyone can get up there and express their opinion at that public meeting, and you know, it goes through an advertisement, it goes through the newspaper. We're not hiding anything. So I'm satisfied that the concerns of Councilman Satterley, you know, would be met in these cases, and I feel good about that. And I think, you know, I've been on here 11 years. We've had one. One of the hardest problems is going to be getting someone to serve on this, because it's a very, very thankless job, believe me. And we were lucky that we had 3 people that appeared to be very sincere in their decisions and got very prepared on the last situation that we wasn't as prepared for as we are now. So I think it's adequate what looks like consensus would be, and I'm satisfied with that.
Thank you, sir. Yes, Brian.
I was just gonna, with that, make a motion or amended motion where we make the, Mr. Lore's changes with the language that it be done on the, you know, commences at the date of the new parish president, and also that the approval would be done at a public hearing of the council with 2/3 vote.
Second.
We have a amended motion by Mr. Brian Malonson, second by Mr. Lore. Any further discussion? Any opposition? Motion passes. We'll move along to agenda item number 14, reading of ordinance to amend the Ascension Parish Code of Ordinances, Chapter 2, Administration, Article 5, Government Purchasing, Division 2, Professional Services, Section 2-82, Other Professional and Consultant Services.
In order to amending the Ascension Parish, Louisiana Code of Ordinances, Chapter 2, Administration, Article 5, Governmental Purchasing, Division 2, Professional Services, Section 2 of Professional Consultant Services. Purpose to amend the Ascension Parish Code of Ordinances, Chapter 2, Administration, Article 5, Governmental Purchasing, Division 2, Professional Services, Section 2-82, Other Professional Consulting Services. Now therefore be it ordained by the Ascension Parish Governing Authority that Ascension Parish, Louisiana Code of Ordinances, Chapter 2, Administration, Article 5, Government Purchasing, Division 2, Professional Services, Section 2.82, Other Professional Consultant Services be amended as follows. Other professional services and consultants, there is hereby established a professional service selection committee accepting healthcare professionals, and the following members shall serve on that committee, all of whom shall constitute the voting membership of the committee. Chief Executive Assistant to the Parish President's designee. The Chief Executive Assistant may be the Chief Executive Assistant. Chief Financial Officer, his designee. Public Works Director, Drainage Director, or Chief Executive Assistant whose department may be impacted by the selection process, impacted department head, and expert in the field of subject matter for which services are sought. This person may be employee of the parish. In the event any portion of the ordinance is ever held invalid, unconstitutional for any court of competent jurisdiction over it, such portion shall be deemed separate, distinct, and independent provisions shall not affect the remaining portions of the ordinance. The ordinance has been submitted to a vote. The vote thereon was as follows.
Open to public comment.
We have a motion to open public hearing by Mr. Sadler.
Second.
Second by Ms. Cazzo.
Motion to close.
Motion closed by Mr. Sadler, second by Mr. Malonzo. We'll entertain a motion to move the ordinance.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Dempsey Lambert to move the ordinance, second by Ms. Cazzo. Any discussion? Any opposition? Motion passes. Before we move on to agenda item number 17, I want to thank Ascension Parish finest, Mr. Bowe, for keeping guard over us tonight. I want to thank all the people, the audio-visual folks that put this out for the public to see where they can enjoy it from a cup of coffee in their recliner. I want to thank all the staff, which we have. A lot of people don't see y'all, but we've probably got 15 staff members here tonight that are here in case we need anything out of you. We appreciate you guys. And for this meeting, I just want to thank all the council for the good deliberation and respect. With that, we'll move on to agenda item number 17.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn by Mr. Todd Lambert, second by Mr. Brian Malonson. Any opposition? We are adjourned.